Poirier versus the UFC's most violent man, Eddie Alvarez. That's the title that's on the line. One of my favorite titles in all of MMA is that title, and we're going to keep that little piece of brilliantness alive over here. So they're going to be fighting for the most violent man. My biggest reaction when I saw that is about damn time. I can't believe they didn't rematch that immediately. That was such an incredible fight. It ended in incredible controversy. You know, if you guys remember this fight, and if you guys don't remember it, let me set it up. Eddie Alvarez takes on Dustin Poirier, okay? Eddie Alvarez, former world champion. Dustin Poirier, everybody's choice. Everybody wants something good to happen to this guy. He's straight up awesome. He does super heavy lifting. He's a handsome guy. He's a nice guy. He's been around a long time. He does everything right. And sometimes doing everything right has taken away his ability to get opportunities. So he's the guy that all the fans are going, man, we want something good to happen to him. So they go out and fight, and they fight in Texas. And Texas is relevant because Texas is one of the only states. I think there's 2 or 3 states. New Jersey comes to mind, Texas. I couldn't even tell you that, but I think there's another one out there. But they don't go by the unified rules. And the nuances and the intricacies of those rules that they don't obey are very slight, but they do exist. And if you guys will remember, a new downed opponent rule came out for what a downed opponent is and when you can throw knees and when you cannot throw knees to your opponent's head. And without going through the specific scenario in detail, just to give you broad strokes, Eddie Alvarez threw a knee that in Texas was a downed opponent because they did not adopt the unified rules. Okay. And I will tell you, that's about as nasty as it gets to knee a guy in the head when you can't do it. But if you saw the positioning, nobody came away with that thinking, oh my gosh, Eddie Alvarez, what a bad guy. If you saw the positioning of the fight, Eddie had his head turned in one direction, the opposite of Poirier's head. And Poirier's head is where his hands were. His hands were right underneath his face. So Eddie could not see where his hands were. Doesn't make it any less of a foul. But to retell the story for people that didn't see it, Eddie did not come out of this looking like a jerk. He came out with a guy that screwed up, and now the ref had to step in. As a matter of fact, when they did the post-fight interview, they showed it on the big screen. Eddie took one look at Eddie thought the knees were legal, but he also didn't see it. He takes one look on the big screen while everybody's watching and goes, oh, yeah, those are illegal knees. I'm really sorry. And he meant it. It was sincere. Poirier's like, no problem. They shook hands and walked away. However, we had this incredible fight with an incredible dialogue because, in my opinion, they ruled this a no contest. In my opinion, that was the wrong call. It was a disqualification. Through my understanding and interpretation of the rules, that is a disqualification, and Poirier should have won that. Either way, it created drama. It creates a dialogue and a talking point, which means you redo the fight. They've both fought since then. Eddie's fought a couple of times. Maybe Poirier's fought a couple of times. Finally, they're back together. And that was just my first takeaway. Finally, they're back together. A little more built-in drama here, okay? And I thought that Poirier, if you would have stopped the fight right then and gone to the cards, which is a boxing rule, not an MMA rule, but I think Poirier was winning that fight. And that was a shock at that time. It was a big surprise at that time. It was a great fight. I mean, it was super close and competitive, but I thought Poirier was winning. So if Poirier gets over on Eddie Alvarez, it's really hard to deny his shot at the top. The problem is you're in murderer's row at 155 pounds. It is just hammer after hammer after hammer. Who are you going to give it to? So Poirier, you give him the next best thing that you can, which is main events. And that's a really great spot to be in. So Poirier is getting his shine. But then you've got Eddie Alvarez. And part of this story, and Ariel Helwani broke this on ESPN Plus. Ariel and the bad guy on our show. But Eddie Alvarez's contract is up with the UFC. What that means is he has one fight left, which tomorrow, that will be that fight. When he gets out of the ring, win, lose, or draw, he is no longer under contract to the UFC. Now, I'm sure that he would like to remain under contract with the UFC. This is a gamble. We've seen guys do this before. I'm going to try to go out on top. I'm going to try to elevate my stock so that when I come back in and talk with you guys about a new contract, you see me in a new light with a new value. Very risky. However, if you do it and you succeed, it does work. That is something where if he comes off a win over Dustin Poirier and looks great and his stock goes up, the UFC will absolutely recognize. They won't deny it. So that was a risky game you played, but we're gamblers ourselves, so what the hell? Let's talk.